Good evening, everybody. Merry Christmas. Welcome to Kenilworth Road. We're trialling something a little bit different tonight, just because we had some audio issues and some visual issues as well. So hopefully this works a little bit better. We have the Norwich City team for you now. A few changes for Norwich City, so I'll run through this for you. It looks like Gunn in goal, Aarons, Omar Hanley, Gibson in there as well. And you knew this, that looks like a back three to me, with Gibbs and Sarah in there, and McLean with Pookie, Gibbs in there as well. Did I say Gibbs? With Sargent and Pookie as well. So I'll run through that again. Gunn in goal, Aarons, Omar Hanley, Gibson, and Yanulis. Looks like a back five to me. Sarah, Gibbs, and McLean with Sargent and Tamu Pookie. I would go that. So I would look at that as a 3-5-2. So change of shape, lots of changes in there from a Norwich City perspective. The bench: Tim Krul, Sam Byram, Isaac Hayden, Kieran Dow, Adam Ida, Onel Hernandez, and Marcelino Nunez. Paddy Davitt, change of shape, plenty of changes in personnel. What do you make of that?
Well, that's a pretty clear signal that something had to change, and something I'd call that quite a radical change in terms of personnel, less so, but certainly in terms of formation. I don't think there's any other way you cut it. That has to be a three, with the two wing backs, if we'll call them that, in Yanulis, tailor-made for that role in my opinion, and Max on the other side. I've just noticed, I just want to double check that there's no McCallum on the bench, and Byram's on there, so that's a bit of an elevation for him, because he was only, I think, Friday on the cusp of coming back in to first team training, but he's on the bench. We'll clear that with Dean Smith after the game, but you would have to assume that Callum, not in the 18, is an injury related one. Whether it would have made any difference to Dimmy starting, probably not, because I think he's looked at him and thought, we need to shake it up. As he said, it feels like quite a long time ago, but it was actually only Friday when we had pretty much a one-to-one with Dean Smith at Colney, and he said words to the effect that tonight, for the reasons we all know, we don't need to get into them in too much depth again around the Blackburn game, that there's very, very little margin for error, evening rate, tonight, and things have to change and change dramatically and pretty quickly for his own job security first and foremost. So this looks like a lineup that reflects that. Gibbs in as well, massive call. The right call, was calling for that myself. Pre-Blackburn, don't want to be wise after the event, and it might not go well tonight, but he had to be in the team because he offers something on the ball in terms of quality and also drive and dynamism. I think if it is a three, that could work. That's interesting for me to see that pivot of Gibbs, McLean and Zara, and then it would suggest, until we hear different or see different in a matter of just under an hour, that it's Josh Sargent down the middle, not shoved out wide and asked to do a job for the team. No, it's Josh Sargent centrally operating in tandem with Tamu Pookie. And I think most Norwich fans and most pundits have been calling for that. So, and even if we want to go back to the back three, I think Gibson in a back three looks a bit more comfortable. And you've got Omar Daly in there, who had to come back in, I think, after the Blackburn game. So positive, but it's not really what happens now. The team news has dropped. What happens on this pitch in front of us in the next 2-3 hours. But if it is that shape with that personnel, it's basically a Dean Smith acknowledgement that things had to change, because if they didn't, he's talking about margins for error. Well, the ice is very thin that he's standing on at the minute. So, if it transpires that this gets the result and a performance, then who knows? Could be the watershed moment. I know there's a lot of Norwich fans probably on this broadcast and generally who will think the die is already cast and it's just a case of when rather than if. But for now, he remains in post. There's been no sense, I get, since Blackburn of the people inside the football club looking to make that change imminently. So, that might stop short if he's got their full support, but he's certainly the man in charge for now. And tonight is a massive opportunity for him, first and foremost, but for Norwich as well. And QPR are playing currently, but it looks like the results around them have been fairly favourable. Maybe not the gap to the top two, which looks done and dusted, but in terms of the playoff picture, if that is the limit of their horizons for the second part of the season, they need to come in, they need to get a result and at least go back to Carrow Road looking to do something that suggests it's going to be a bit more positive than what it felt like at 9 o'clock last Saturday against Blackburn, when that wasn't a very nice place to be. certainly for Dean Smith. So, we're getting a sense of the relation of the comments coming in, and I think the majority of them are quite positive. And I'll throw it back to you, Connor. What's your take when you see that lineup and what looks like that formation?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's balanced. I think you can definitely see more creativity in there than perhaps we saw last weekend, particularly with perhaps, and we hope it translates to this, a bit more attacking freedom and a bit more attacking license with the wing backs to get on as well. Josh Sargent will offer them a bit more of an aerial presence in the box to complement, obviously, Team Ibuki's strength. So, a really interesting lineup. I've got to be honest, I'm a bit surprised it's taken this long into the season to see Norwich deploy a back three, but on paper, I really like the look of that. I think it suits the players that are in that system well. Really pleased to see Liam Gibbs. I thought he was excellent when he came on last weekend. And obviously negates the fact that perhaps Norwich City in wide areas at the moment are lacking depth and probably quality as well. No Sonani in the 18 either. Obviously, Todd Cantwell and Aaron Ramsey missing as we expected them to be. So, yeah, I like the look of it. Let's see how it works on paper. I think I'd still worry about central areas, whether they can attack coherently in those areas of the pitch. But it's a very high kind of a midfield geared to high pressing. So if they can turn over the ball in really positive areas, who knows? They're going to create opportunities here against this Luton team tonight. And speaking of Luton, I'll read you their line-up. They do commonly play a three at the back, but it's obviously changing the dugout. So not quite sure if that's what they've gone with tonight. I'll read the names and then we'll try and piece it together in a little while. They've got Ethan Horvath in goal, James Bree, Potts, Lockyer, Carlton Morris, of course, former FA Youth Cup winner with Norwich City, starting for them. He scored the winner in the reverse fixture in October. Adebayo also looks to partner him up front, I would guess. Mpanzu, Clark, Campbell, who's a good player at this level, Osso and Doherty. Their bench instead Cornick, Berry, Woodrow, Freeman, certain Cameron Jerome and Petit as well. So that is how Luton line up this evening. Paddy Dimi Yanulis, thank you, mate. Dimi Yanulis, someone who's not played a lot of football. He's had injuries. He's been outside. Thank you, mate. For a little while.
Doesn't he know we're on a live broadcast?
Obviously not. Very friendly though. Very friendly. What do you make of his inclusion over Sam McCann? I would say not sure yet whether that's a fitness related issue or if it's a selection decision. We'll of course get that cleared up with Dean Smith after the game. But Dimi Yanulis back in, and as you said, because of the change of system, it feels like a shape that's going to suit his game a lot more.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think there's no doubt we've seen enough of Dimi Yanulis in a Norwich shirt to know that he's better going forward than he is going the other way. And if this is the shape that he's got, suppose we would assume Gibson offering that protection as the left-sided of the three. So I think that's a good move. It definitely plays to his strengths. And also, you're talking about the width. Well, he's going to be tasked with providing it one flank and Max on the other. And, both of those are very adventurous, naturally inclined to get on the front foot. It just feels like since Dean Smith came in, I know you asked me about the left-hand side, but on the right, it feels like Max has had to curb his game. There was initially when Dean Smith came in, those comments that he more or less said to Max, I don't really want you going to the other side of the halfway line, because obviously at that stage it was about trying to make themselves a bit more solid against the ball. But I know we're now in a championship cycle, but it feels like that's still the case with Max, that the handbrake doesn't quite go off in the way it used to in his pomp when he first broke through under Farker. If you had him bombing down on the right-hand side, you had your new list doing what he does on the left, there'd just be so much more balance to this Norwich side going forward, which, they need to find something in terms of a cohesive plan. And if that width and balance is provided by two natural players in those positions, then bring it on. Because I think if you're Pookie and Sargent, you're going to get some decent service coming in from wide areas. In terms of McCallum, we're probably better part of that because, of course, Yanulis wasn't in the 18 for the Blackburn game, and Dean Smith said after the game that was purely a tactical, there was no fitness issue. It might just be the reverse of that tonight. It might be just decided this is a game for Dimmy, and on the bench, he's got Sam Byram. But it would seem a bit strange for Byram to be elevated and not McCallum. So I tend to think there is maybe an issue there, but we'll obviously clarify. But even if he was fully fit, if Dean Smith had this shape in his mind going into this game, who do you play out of Yanulis or McCallum? I think it's Yanulis all day long. So if you Dimmy Yanulis, I know for one thing, this is an opportunity for you tonight. You must have been a bit frustrated, to put it mildly, certainly being left out of an 18 as he was for the Blackburn game. If he wants to put a little message to Dean Smith tonight, go out and perform, and then it's his shirt for Sam McCallum to come and take off him again. And ultimately, there hasn't been enough of that from front to back this season. That competitive edge where players by dint of their performances individually and collectively keeping others out the side. The fact that we're talking here again tonight, this far into the season, about a change of shape, changes of personnel, it cuts to the heart of the matter that Dean Smith hasn't come up with a coherent strategy, and the players he's entrusted haven't gone out and delivered for him. So that we're still, far too long into the season for anybody's liking, hoping that this comes together tonight and knits into something that hitherto we haven't really seen. We've seen patches of good results. Have we seen really a system of play with and without the ball that you think, right, yeah, week in, week out, that is residually going to be effective in this level? I don't think we have seen that. So whether it's a new dawn or a false dawn, we'll know in about 2 hours, mate.
Yes, absolutely. You mentioned the results earlier on. There's an opportunity tonight for Norwich to obviously go fourth. Watford were beaten by Millwall earlier in the day. QPR playing at the moment as well, so Norwich could get pushed down to sixth before they kick off. But that's currently 0-0. So Millwall now in the top six. I mean, it does. Again, we talk about opportunities. It's a really interesting night tonight because a win for Norwich, as I said, takes them above Watford into fourth and just a point behind Blackburn, who lost at Sunderland today, obviously with 2 home games to come. Failure to win probably keeps them well in the mix. I think they're 3 points off 15th at the moment. It's an utter, it's madness, the championship table at the moment. What would the negative side of that look like from a Norwich City perspective? Because they're, irrespective of what happens tonight now, they're going to be in the top six. Does that mean, irrespective of what happens here tonight, Dean Smith will get bought time ahead of those 2 home games? Do you think? I guess it's a difficult question to answer.
Well, I'm looking straight through past your laptop corner at the away end here now, which is starting to fill up. I don't actually know the tally of how many are here.
I think it's about 1,500.
Yeah, I was going to say 15 to 2,000. The home fans, the ones who were there, and then the ones who stayed to the bitter end, they made it quite clear what they felt about the situation after Blackburn. And then Dean Smith bit and had his say, and then it got even more conflated. And we spent days after that game. How does he get through this? Can he come back from this? Well, he's still in the dugout at kick-off tonight. But if that away end, finish the game in a similar sort of unhappy mood, then you can take it from that they haven't performed, they haven't got the result, they probably haven't shown signs that this manager can really do anything with this group of players. Because if tonight, in a new shape, with new personnel in that shape, if it's still as laboured and disconnected and disjointed and lacking in any sort of sense of go forward momentum, then I see Middlesbrough. I mean, we're talking about, yes, okay, technically they'll still be in the top six tonight, but Middlesbrough are coming up in the rearview mirror. They're 10th tonight. They've won. Sunderland have won. West Brom, for me, they're coming now. They're only 3 points out of the playoffs. If Norwich are still treading water, to use that phrase, then yes, they might go home tonight, still in the top six. But heaven forbid they've got beat here today. What is Reading at Carrow Road going to be like on Friday? Let's cross that bridge when we get to it. But I mean, we were discussing it. Would a defeat be the end for him tonight? It might be the manner of the defeat still, because, as I say, there's been no sense that he's got 90 minutes to save his job. But if it was an abject performance and an abject result, then, as I say, we know what the mood is at the minute. And if 2,000 or so, 1,500 express it quite aggressively, then we get to a situation where they have to act.
Yeah, and there's been 9 days as well since that full-time whistle went out at Carrow Road for that Blackburn game. That's a long period in football time anyway, and certainly one of the longest periods he would have had this season to work with this group. 3 at the back is a very difficult shape to change to in seasons, because there's it's different obviously mechanically and how teams set up, and obviously the understanding between the back 3 is going to be pivotal. I agree. I think there's a debate to be had, and I think probably a right debate, that Ben Gibson is probably better suited to a back 3 at the moment. A natural left footer there providing balance. You've got Omar Bamadele, who obviously comes in tonight after a long spell on the sideline, so you just hope that he's ready for it as well. And on the other side, if they can get a win tonight, Paddy, suddenly it may seem crazy at this moment in time, but certainly just purely on the table, thing, certainly not to the top two, but certainly in terms of that playoff picture, they buy themselves a little bit more comfort than certainly they've got at this moment in time.
Well, I mean, he made that point on Friday that, you get a positive performance. I think he actually said that it buys them time for Reading, whether that was time within the game in the first half at Carrow Road, if they go into that on the back of a win. But no, for me, I think it's reached the point now, if we don't see a performance that feels like it's a step forward, because we've had bunches of results, we've had bunches of good points hauls, and yet we're still here, and they're in contention, you could say, in terms of the playoff picture, but it doesn't feel right, and that was volubly expressed at Carrow Road against Blackburn. So I think if they scratch a win out, yes, okay, it'll roll on, but it won't
only
feel
to Friday now. It rolls
exactly.
on only to Friday.
So I think it does need a performance for me today, as much as a result. It definitely needs a performance.
Yeah, and that's the Norwich City goalkeepers emerging for their pre-match warm-up. Positive reception from the Norwich City fans. Big night for Norwich City, and I guess more so probably for Dean Smith. You can cover, or you can follow all the coverage of tonight on all of our channels, Pinkham.com, the Pinkham Plus app as well. You can take out a free trial for that on
I think I might be failing at 8 fitness.
Yeah, well, and that and the PA kicking in, I think it's probably a suggestion it's time for us to close up. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. There we go. And we got fingers crossed for a positive result for Norwich City tonight. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again very soon.